Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Mornings of Mischief. I'm your host, Stone Loki, and with me today is the one, the only, the co-creator of Bane. He worked on the Nightfall series. Ladies and gentlemen, Graham Nolan is here with us. It is so nice to meet you, sir.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
So you got a chance to work on one of the greatest comic book lines of all time, Detective Comics, with one of the greatest characters of all time, Batman. What of course I'm gonna do this, and everybody probably already expected. What got you? What got you there? What got you to that point where you were working on Batman?
There's two separate routes. One was my exposure to the Batman TV show in the 60s as a kid. And then the other was monster magazines, which I loved as a kid. And a lot of those monster magazines would always have articles about comic books. And so the two sort of dovetailed together. And the first comics that I ended up buying always had somewhat of a monster theme to it. So that's how I got into comics generally, but I always wanted to do Batman. And the first Batman comic I got was a Detective Comics. My father was a homicide detective, and I really wanted to do the flagship book. So when it was offered to me, it was like, yeah.
Yeah. Were you surprised that they did that? Or were you expecting something like that?
To be offered the book?
Yeah.
Well, I had done some fill-ins for them. They had been bouncing artists in and out of the detective for about a year or so, and so nobody had locked it down. And then I did three issues, starting with the Tech 650. Through 653, I think, with the three, or was it four? It was so long ago, I can't remember. But I think on the strength of those three issues, and the fact that I could hit their deadlines and everything, was what prompted them to invite me on board.
What was the air at DC like then? I mean, like, around working in that environment, what was it like at that point in time?
That was, I think, one of the greatest times for corporate comics, because they hadn't been swallowed up by these giant conglomerates that are only just strip mining them for IP. The publishing end was the publishing end. DC was owned by Warner Brothers at that time, yes, but they were a separate entity, and they were run separately. And the environment there was very familial. They cared about you. Paul Levitz, Jeanette Kahn, Dick Giordano, and a lot of the other people that were in management there. They seemed to understand. Most of them had all come up through the trenches, as it were. There wasn't a ton of money in comics, so it didn't get polluted by that just yet. So they worked hard to make sure that the freelancers were taken care of as best as possible, under a work for hire deal. So I loved it. I thought it was really great, and I wish it was like that again.
I've got a question for you from Mexican Iron Man with a $14.99 super chat. He says, "The great Graham, oh my God, he did so many of the absolute favorite Detective Comics in my collection. Sir, how did you and the team ever create such an original character like Bane? Wow, so original."
Well, original, yes, but inspired by Bane. The idea for Bane was to create an evil Doc Savage. We needed a villain for the storyline, for the upcoming Nightfall storyline, which Denny wanted to do. And the premise of that was that he was getting a lot of guff from fans saying that Batman needed to kill his villains, because at the time, the Punisher and Wolverine were really, really popular and selling like hotcakes. And Denny thought it was antithetical to who Batman was, and he wanted to show the readers why that's a bad idea. So the whole premise of Nightfall was basically to give the readers a more violent Batman and show them why it's not a good thing. So we had to take Batman out, and there was nobody in the rogues gallery that was either strong enough or smart enough. There were strong guys, there were smart guys, but there was never the full package. And so that's where the idea of Doc Savage came up. For your viewers that might not know who Doc Savage is, he was the prototypical hero pulp character from the 1930s that inspired Superman, Batman, James Bond, and the list goes on and on. This is the guy. He was the man of bronze. Superman was the man of steel. Doc Savage had a fortress of solitude in the Arctic. Superman had a fortress of solitude in the Arctic. He was Clark Savage Jr. Superman was Clark Kent. So you can see the inspiration there. And so he also was an inspiration for Bane.
Did going into that, it's such a twist to how things are now, because I remember that back then. I remember so many people turning to Wolverine, turning to the Punisher. And now it's like if someone were to do something like that now, which they kind of did in one of the movies, you would have an outcry of people saying, no, Batman doesn't do that.
I would disagree with that, because I think Batman does do that now in all the other media. He's firing machine guns and killing people from his car. He's throwing guys out of windows. Batman is no longer the untarnished knight, Knight, that he used to be. And a lot of that came from Frank Miller's interpretation that everybody seems to have glommed onto. And they've lost sort of the nobility of who Batman was.
So you think that, I know as fans, almost anyone I talk to about Batman would say that Batman firing a gun would be wrong. Batman shooting someone, it goes against the very nature of who he is because of what happened to his parents. I agree with that. I don't think he should have guns or machine guns on the Batmobile or anything like that that would kill somebody. Maybe like as riot suppression, rubber bullets or something. I could get behind that. But a gun that would actually kill somebody, I think would go against the very core of Batman.
Yeah, I agree. The idea of Batman not using guns is sort of childish, because the idea of Batman is he wants to be the ultimate, avenger, the ultimate warrior. And so he would have trained with every weapon possible. In fact, Chuck and I did a story with Deathstroke and what's the other character? He's like an assassin type guy. And anyway, it comes down to Batman has to take a shot with a sniper rifle from like a mile away, because there's no other way to stop this murder that's going to happen. And we show Batman is a consummate professional with all his weapons, even though he regrets having to use that weapon. And I thought that was a really great storyline to show that Batman can use guns, but he's reluctant to do so.
We got a question from MB Geeks, Jesse. From Jesse, let's talk. Who came up with the idea of Bane being able to figure out Bruce's Batman?
Yeah, I don't know if it came from Denny or from Chuck as part of the initial idea of the Nightfall storyline. I imagine that was probably discussed pretty early on because it was necessary. We had to. He had to be defeated, and if he was going to be completely defeated, i.e., his back broken, whoever did it was going to know who he was.
Of course, because Bruce is down. Bruce, if Batman goes down, Bruce Wayne goes down. So, did you think that would have the effect that it had when you guys were creating this? Because it's like everybody brings up, Bane. Bane's the guy who broke the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys know it was going to have that kind of effect?
Yeah, we sort of knew from pre-sales and the buzz, this is pre-internet days, that the character was going to be popular within the storyline. The fact that he became popular is in a pop culture sense years later That's the surprise.
Yeah, because he's been in the animated series, he's been in movies, he's been in video games. I can think of 2 video games he's in. He's in the DC Heroes game that was out on 360, I think, years ago, and he's on multiple of the Arkham games.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in everything from board games to comics to movies. Did you have anything to do with any of those? Like, I know, Bane's always going to be the inspiration for anything Bane is outside of comics, but did they ever ask you, hey, we're putting this together? No, nothing.
Yep, nothing.
I can tell from the movies. I know
Yeah.
we have some real hatred for Batman and the Bane that was in Batman and Robin. Because when I first saw that, I was like, oh yeah, it's Bane. They're gonna have Bane in the movie, and then he wasn't anything like Bane was supposed to be, and they've got him in the Christopher Nolan movies, obviously in Dark Knight Rises, and he's not the same Bane. You guys, it was almost like you guys caught lightning in a bottle with him in the comic. You really did. He was scary.
Whenever you create any character, you're always hoping you're going to catch that zeitgeist, because that's what you want. You want it to be a success. But it so rarely happens. That's why, not everybody's a millionaire.
Yeah.
If it was that easy to do and figure out, everybody would do it. A lot of it's luck. There's hard work that went into defining him as a flesh and blood character. Sure. But even then, sometimes it doesn't kick until years later, or sometimes it never kicks at all,
When you guys were going through the design phase, I can't imagine. I know you talked about, kind of what he was inspired by, but you also had Bruce Wayne go down and you had Azrael come in for Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't Dick Grayson. I remember talking to a friend of mine about this not too long ago, and I was like, well, they had to have somebody outside of the Wayne family, because if he could take down Bruce, I mean, nobody takes down Bruce. Nobody in the Wayne family, whether it's Dick Grayson, whether it's any of them, Batgirl, anybody, nobody takes down Batman. So it was almost like they had to get somebody from the outside that knew who Batman was and could step into that role. Was that something you guys thought about?
Well, no, it wasn't just somebody replacing him. He had to be somebody willing to kill. That was the whole point of the story, was to have the more violent Batman, the Batman that would kill his opponents, which is why you couldn't be Dick. It couldn't be any of the heroic characters that Batman has tutelaged on, or tutored, I should say. It had to be somebody different, and Azrael was created for that role.
It's amazing to me that because I remember reading those. In fact, I've got a couple of yours signed by you. I think numbered, that I got in some lot of comics, but they were all Nightfalls. And of course, I got the one where he's breaking Batman's bat, and I've got the one where Azrael's in the almost like the metal Batman suit. I've got that signed. But it was one of those times where you were like, you're right. Do you really want this? Is this what you really want? You want a Batman that just kills? And I remember on the cover of one of those, you had Batman with like a board with nails in it, and he's about to like bring it down on this guy's head, and Robin's like looking like, oh my God, you can't do that,
Right.
And it was. You're right. Do you really want a violent, a killing Batman, a Batman that kills, the bat that kills? I guess you could call it the bat that kills. And I never thought about that like that. I just thought, well, they had to get somebody besides the Wayne family, because he trained them all. So they're all, if any of them go up against Bane, they're going to lose. Because if Bruce can take him out, and this guy took out Bruce, then he's just going to be able to take them out too. He's not going to be able to do it. I never thought about it like, well, do you guys really want this? Well, we'll kind of give it to you, but it's not really what you want, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly the point of the whole series.
And I've got a 9.99 super chat from Mexican Iron. Monster Island and Chino, both are fantastic. Which of the titles is your favorite? Also, Chino is super original. How did you come up with this creature?
What he's referring to is my current Indiegogo campaign book, the Chenoo. Um, that idea came to me as I was riding along Lake Erie and a snowstorm was coming in. And I thought it was very foreboding and scary looking. I thought, a winter storm would be a great location for a horror tale. And I pulled into a coffee shop. I pulled up my laptop and I did some research and found an Indian lore about a creature called the Chenoo. And so I utilized some of that Native American lore to craft my story.
That is all. So you researched this American Indian lore, and what is it about? What is the Chenoo
Well,
about?
according to the myth, the Chenoo was a man who scarred his soul. It was usually through cannibalism. It was so scarred that it changed him into this ice creature that would have to eat the hearts of his fellow men to try and regain the warmth that he could no longer experience. And I thought, wow, that sounds really cool. And I live just outside of Buffalo, and they're known for their blizzards and the blizzard of '77. So I crafted a story that involved that and the deaths that happened during that blizzard, that they weren't all from a blizzard. And so now the story takes place today when the Chenoo has come back as another storm is coming off the ice and brings him with it. And he traps a bunch of people in a house and tries to feed on them, and they try to stay alive. So it's a kind of a claustrophobic horror tale that really gets your blood chilled, if you'll pardon the pun.
I can't wait to look at that. I didn't even know you were working on that, and I know the mods got my mods are throwing links in here. I know I'm going to go and check that out. I've got a question from Spoiled Quinn Baby Doll. Sorry if I'm jumping the gun, Loki, but Graham, is there a Bane that comes in as a close second to yours, a Bane that you were proud of and enjoyed watching? I'm assuming she's talking about like cartoon, movie, anything you've seen?
Two of them, and they're both cartoons. Batman the Animated Series, the first one, because he put him into that more wrestler luchador mask, which was what my original design was. I thought that was a really great version, and Henry Silva voiced him in a Latino accent. So that was my first favorite. And then the latest one is was it Teen Justice? Is that a show?
Yes.
Justice? Yeah. I think that was the one, and he had the actual real comic Bane design costume, and he was voiced by what's his name? The guy who played Machete. The Mexican guy.
Oh, Machete.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I cannot believe I do not know.
Everybody in the comments section, pop it in there. Danny Trejo, Keely Chow.
Danny Trejo.
Thank you. Danny Trejo. Yeah. And I mean, that voice, that gravelly Hispanic voice, is dead on perfect.
I love his movies too. I don't know why my brain wouldn't work and figure that out. I loved him in all of Robert Rodriguez's films. Absolutely wonderful actor.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just on, what was The Flash? He was just on The Flash as like a multi-dimensional traveler or something.
Oh, really?
I should have known. Yeah, I should have known that. Yeah, he was the father of one of like the multi-dimensional cops that runs around the multiverse arresting people for jumping planets or whatever.
Okay.
I can't remember the character he played, but yeah, no, I love Machete. And Mexican Army, and I had no idea Trejo was the one that voiced Bane for that. So you've got What did you think about Nolan's portrayal? I know I've got a certain goddess of chaos out there that would love to know what you thought of Nolan's portrayal of Bane.
I didn't care for it. The fact is, I don't care for any of his movies except the first one, the first Batman movie. That's the most Batman of the Batman movies. I thought the second one was bloated with too much plot that just bogged down, and that sequence with Batman in the daylight in the jail beating on the Joker was something out of the 1950s. And the version for Dark Knight Rises, again, he intimates that Bane is this great tactician and leader and all that kind of stuff, and he was no different than the Bane in the dopey Joel Schumacher movie, in that he's just a patsy. He's a patsy for Talia in this movie. That she's the one that pulled all the strings. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of his Batman movies. They're really James Bond movies when you think about it. You substitute Batman for James Bond, and you substitute Lucius Fox for Q, and it's a James Bond film, because nothing is ever. He's not a detective in any of these movies. Everything is solved with technology. So, I'm waiting for a real Batman movie where he sticks into the shadows and he uses his detective skills.
That is one of the things, as far as the filmography went of that first movie, when he is on that statue on that high rise and the camera's like panning around him and you see his cape flowing over that, like covering that statue, and he's just standing there in the middle of the city on that high rise building, standing on that statue. I was like, holy crap, that looks like Batman. That's a little like looking over Gotham watching.
Mm-hmm.
That was very Batman. I did not. I liked Ledger's portrayal of the Joker. Dark Knight was a little long to me, but I couldn't stand Bane in that third movie in Dark Knight Rises. I couldn't stand it. I thought that oh man, I can't even think of the name of the guy who played him right now.
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. Thank you. I thought Tom Hardy was good, and I did a great job acting, but that's not Bane. That's some dude with a mask on. That's like, I've come out of the shadows. That's not Bane. That's not Bane. Oh shit! No, Bane's Latino, and he's got the suit and the juice. The juice. How did you guys come up with that? Just like juice? Was it just like
Well, the Venom, it's called Venom, and that came out of a Denny O'Neil story that he had written for Legends of the Dark Knight that Jose Luis Garcia Lopez illustrated. It was Batman trying to get an edge on the bad guys, and basically the super steroid amp himself up, and he got addicted to it, and it was bad, and it was to show the dangers of drugs and steroids and stuff. So that existed, that pre-existed, and so Denny wanted that as part of what made Bane Bane.
And MB Geek says, I want Batman to be a detective in Vengeance. That is Batman. I really wish there was more backstory on how he became a detective.
Well, there certainly is in the comics.
No. Do you think that's something that's missing? So many people look at the movies and the games, and I love the animated series. So, I mean, watch the animated series all you want, but that it's kind of gotten away from comic books being comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Those stories were so, I mean, it could take a whole year to tell a story back in the day. It could take an entire year to get your story across. Now you get your story across in a 30-minute episode on TV, or an hour or a 2-hour movie. Do you think that takes away from those characters?
Well, there's only two kinds of stories, good ones and bad ones. How long it takes to tell it, is really up to the writer who is telling that story. You can put a lot in a small story. You look at the work of Kriegstein and Eisner. In 8 pages they could fill you with more pathos and keep it more interesting than 10 issues of just about anything Marvel publishes. So
What did you do after your run at DC was over?
well, it's not like a run just ends. Uh, as with anything, it's sort of a progression. Around 1998, the industry was imploding. People were losing their jobs. The editors that I knew were leaving the business or being fired. And I didn't like the direction of comics. I didn't like the stuff that was being produced. I thought it was overly sexualized and overly violent. Um, Particularly when we're talking about, these, superhero characters. I couldn't give my young daughters the comics that I used to read as a kid, without having to, go through them and make sure they were appropriate. Shouldn't be like that. So I went off and I did. I wrote a book for my kids called Monster Island and published it myself. Eventually got optioned by Spielberg and DreamWorks, but that's a tale for another story, another day. Um, and then I got into newspaper strips. I illustrated the Phantom for King Feature Syndicate and Rex Morgan MD for like 13 years. And then that became soul crushing because there's just there's no support. There's no love there from the syndicates. So I gave that up and started getting back into comics again. And then, comics are starting to tank again, as a business, as far as the corporate comics are going. Once they got swallowed up by the corporations, as I mentioned earlier, they're getting, chewed up and spit out with not a lot of thought going into the publishing end of things. And then lo and behold, up comes crowdfunding and create our own stuff. And that's when I've really set my teeth into now is writing and creating my own comics for an audience that appreciates, fun, adventure, and just good storytelling.
And that's what a lot of us. That is what a lot of us want, is good storytelling. Project Storytime asks, "Can you ask Graham if he has any advice for writing a comic? Give any advice out there for young writers, young artists that want to do their own comic?"
Well, you're the boss. When you're writing your own comic or drawing your own comic, you're the boss. So, just make sure, it sounds simple, but, have a good story. Start with that. I would say write things that interest you and work that into a dramatic narrative. Don't go off just because, let's say, Fast and Furious are popular movies and you don't give a shit about cars. Don't try and write a Fast and Furious comic if you don't care about cars and street racing and that kind of stuff. Find things that excite you.
I completely agree with that. There's a lot of us that feel like the people that are behind the pen, behind the stories these days, they don't care about those characters, and they want to fundamentally change the aspect of those characters to suit what they want them to be instead of what they have been for the last, 8 decades. I think Batman and Superman just had an 80th anniversary, and you've got different people's takes on those superheroes, but you've also got core values and core principles those characters have had that are just being thrown out the window now. Well, we don't like that, and he's ours now, so we're going to make him into what we want him to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that can go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and that's where the laziness comes in. Maybe some of these characters have shelf lives. If you're not going to, if you can't recognize them, either the way they look or the way they behave as the characters that have been around for 80 plus years, then they're not the same characters. So why change them that much? Just the reason I I posed the question to myself: is the reason that they change them and they keep the name on it is because they're too lazy to create new things. Because creating new things is hard work. So they want to write stuff that they want to see, even though there may not be a market for it, and they'll tag the Batman name or the Green Lantern name or whatever, you name it, the Spider-Man name. They'll gender swap, they'll race swap, whatever, and they'll throw that name on rather than doing the heavy lifting of creating a new character that fits the parameters that they want, because they won't stand behind it if it crashes and the market proves that nobody wants that.
That's amazing, because I actually have we have talked about that on the morning show a couple of times, why they won't just create a new character and why they're going through using the old characters to try and get away with whatever they want to. And that's something I've said before, is if it fails, that is their idea that failed. If it's something that already exists, like Batman, they can point their fingers at the fans and say, well, you're this, that, or the other. It's your fault this turned out this way. And instead of taking responsibility on the fact that their idea sucked.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I saw recently, it's actually what got us to reach out, was that you put out a tweet that said DC doesn't want you to run their line because you would be gone within like a day. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think you'd be gone within the day. Why do you think you would be gone within the day?
Because I would hold them accountable.
Yeah.
I'd go in there. I would clean house of the dead weight that's there. I would make them. But let's just back up a second. The job was for the vice president of editorial direction or planning or whatever that corporate title is. And basically, that person, along with the publisher or the editor in chief, would discuss the print lines and where they were going, what their direction they were going, publishing these comics. And I would one of the things I said I would do is I would restore autonomy to the editors, so that they can pick and choose the teams that they want, that is best suited. I'd let the creators come up with the ideas, instead of having some executive up in an office say, let's do this big ridiculous crossover, whatever, so that the people that are creative are doing the creative stuff. That seems to make pretty good sense to me, instead of executives that if they could do it, they'd be doing it, instead of lording over people,
telling you how to do it.
Yeah. So that's why I think I'd be shit canned in a day.
Well, I completely agree with you. I don't understand why. Let's say you bring a young director, and the whole point of bringing in this young director to work on let's say a Batman film, would be that you can push him around. The executives can push him around. He doesn't have that much experience. Let's say he did one movie or something, and they can basically like keep their eye on him and tell him, well, we need to do this, we need to do that, and force their direction on a film. Why not just do the film yourselves if that's what you want to do? Why have a director at all?
Mm-hmm.
Why have someone there at all besides, well, if it goes ass up, we can blame this guy. We can point our fingers at him and blame him and say it's all our fault, or it's all his fault.
Well, finger pointing goes back a long way.
Yeah.
Success has many fathers, and failure has none.
And Mexican Iron Man with another $9.99 super chat says Monster Island is excellent. So if we want quality comics, then is the future rebirth in Indiegogo self-publishing? What's Graham's opinion about Keanu Reeves also jumping in?
The first part of the question, yes, I think the crowdfunding is the wave of the future, as far as because it's passion comics. You're getting top creators to do the things that they love, and if they do what they love and they're remunerated for it, they're just going to keep going. There's going to be passion in that project, and it's going to come out in the product. As far as Keanu Reeves, that's sort of a little bit different because they had a publisher, I think it was Boom Comics, who decided to crowdfund it and make some money to publish it that way. I think that's a little weird that you've got an established company that's now asking people to crowdfund their project. And it was obviously Keanu's star power, which pushed that thing into incredible numbers, because it brought in people that weren't just in the comics, into comics. They were, they brought in the Keanu Reeves, fan base. So that's a little bit different. But the other thing about crowdfunding too is that there's no gatekeepers. You can, if you have an idea and you think you have the talent, you can put that idea up there, and sky's the limit for you. You do not, you no longer need the permission of major publishers telling you whether your stuff is good or not. The market directly will tell you whether it's good or not, or that you did a good job marketing it.
Yeah, and the independent scene has been absolutely crazy the last couple of years with people like Ethan Van Sciver and other creatives that have come along and just made it. It's exploded. I've said a couple of times, I think that comic books are going to become a mainly indie thing with AT&T taking control of Warner Brothers and taking in tow taking control of DC Comics. Marvel is now controlled by Disney. You've got big corporations, these huge corporations now in charge of the comic book scene, the big comic book scene. And then you've got this independent movement that people are getting behind because they're tired of what's in the mainstream comics, what the mainstream comics are feeding you. I saw an issue of X-Men the other day that has the X-Men killing people in like a riot, killing police in a riot that they started.
Mm-hmm.
That is not what the X-Men do. X-Men stop shit like that because they're like, okay, mutant and humans need to coexist. They don't egg the problem on. And I think that anybody watching, anybody looking at this, anybody reading this, saying that, oh, well, this is good quality comic book, doesn't have any idea what the X-Men have always been about. The X-Men have always been about, hey, human, mutant, it doesn't matter. We're all the same, whether we have powers or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, remember when DC had Superman renounce his U.S. citizenship?
Yeah.
Who's more American than Superman?
Yeah, truth, justice, the American way.
Yeah, I mean, that was horrible. That was bringing politics in, and I hated that. They did the same thing with Captain America. Him declaring he was a Hydra agent or whatever. It's bad comics, it's bad storytelling, and nobody has the balls in editorial to tell these writers who are pushing these ideas, or maybe it's the editors themselves that are saying, hey, give me a story about blah blah blah, their own agendas. If they were so great, they'd be selling a lot better than they are. And that's, I think, the beauty of the crowdfunding people is that it's more than you're getting the passion project. You're also having a one-on-one relationship with the creator as it's being created. So you're part of the story as well. And I think that's the most exciting thing for me, like when I'm finishing up the Chinook campaign. I'm going to launch my next one, Alien Alamo, this month. And the Chinook did incredibly well, over $88,000. And I update my backers every Monday, so they know exactly where we are in the process, when books are going out, what pages I've worked on, blah, 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 all the way through the process. And I'm getting a lot of feedback from them that they're super excited and thankful that I've done that, because there's so many of these campaigns where it goes off the rails and you have no communication. And to me, it was all about, this whole experiment was to communicate with the fans, with the fan base, and make them, part of it, because it can't get made without them, without their backing. And to bring them in and share with them all the backstory stuff that only they can see, I think is just fantastic. And it brings another layer, another level to the enjoyment, I think, of the product in the end, in the end of it.
Yeah, because you can directly see the comments and what people think. It's not, like a group of oh my God, my brain's going. It's not a group of critics talking about your book. It is the actual fans, the people who have bought your product. You are getting a direct response to, holy crap, that looks great, or I can't wait to get this in my hands. And then they get it and they're telling you what they think about it. I love that. I love that idea. And when you're talking about the editors, I have a really close friend who just went from self-publishing his own work to working with a publishing house. And I won't say his name because he'd kill me. When he did, they asked him, they wanted him, they came to him. He didn't go to them. They came to him and they said, we want you. And he came to me in the middle of this process and he said, Loki, they want me to do this crap with one of my female characters where they don't want me to explain anything about why she can do this or how she learned how to do that. They just want her to be able to do it. And they said, this is the way it is now. This is the way you do this. You don't need to explain any of this to us, why she can do these things or how she can just do them. And he said, I absolutely do not want to do that. I want people to understand why she is able to do these things and where these abilities come from. I don't want her to just have them because it's almost like she didn't earn them. And I said, dude, don't let them. I said, they came to you, right? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, then go up the chain, do whatever you got to do, but make sure your character stays your character. That's the whole point of this, is it's your work. It's not the editor's work. The editor's not writing the book. You're writing the book.
Right.
So
Your name on it.
don't change it. If you got to go up the chain, go up the chain, but stick to your guns. It's your character. And he was like, I will. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what he did. And eventually they gave him another editor. He went with they gave him a different editor who is more in line with, no, do what you want to do. I'm here to just check over everything and give you the checks and minuses, not tell you how to write your damn book. And he's so happy now. I'm like, well, great.
That's a good editor. A good editor chooses the creative team and sits back and lets them do their job.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they do. And you get to do that yourself now, though. I mean, being independent, that's what you get to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I want to do something really crazy at the end of a story, shit, I'm going to do it.
And that's the beautiful thing about being independent. And
if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I won't let somebody else tell me that it won't work. I'll let my backers let me know that it doesn't work, or they might say, wow, I didn't see that coming. That came out of nowhere. That was cool. You don't get that everywhere else where they telegraph things a mile away, that kind of stuff.
And Mexican Army says Graham is excellent about keeping in touch with his campaign backers' personal experience. Oh man!
Well, thank you for your support, sir.
Mexican Iron Man is the producer of the show, and he is a really, really good friend or brother. And he absolutely loves your work. When he
thank you.
Out that you were going to be on the show, he almost had kittens. It was so cool to see him get that excited. Is there anything you've ever wanted to do? Anything you've ever wanted to do, that you haven't had the opportunity to? Anything you ever want? Anything? I mean, anything in the comic book industry, movie, anything you ever wanted to do that you never got the opportunity to do yet?
Yeah, I never got to play center field for the New York Yankees. I couldn't hit the fastball. So there's that. But in comics, I mean, there's characters I really wanted to have runs on back in the day, but that ship has sailed. Because as I mentioned earlier, I don't recognize any of them anymore. If they ever wanted me to do anything, they'd have to say, have at it, do whatever you want. Because I have no interest in doing any of their self-directed ideas of what these characters are.
And do you think that's hurting? That's hurting comic books and these comic book characters.
Yeah, it not necessarily because my work's not there. I mean, that's certainly not it. But I think the fan base lets them know that it's hurting them. That when they buy a, say, Fantastic Four comic, they want to recognize the Fantastic Four. When they buy a Hulk comic, they want to recognize the Hulk. I think it ironic that these popular Marvel movies in Phase One were all very respectful of the source material, and yet what was going on in their own comics that were being published that time, they were completely unrecognizable, and yet those movies are super big successes. So why wouldn't you, go back to the core principles of what made that character great?
I agree. I don't know how much you know about the Flash TV. I was a huge Flash fan. So when Flash came out on TV back in the 90s, I was like, man, I'm hooked. I'm watching, Barry Allen kick some ass. And then they come out with a series a couple years ago, and they're bringing in people from the 90s. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. I love it. They're respecting what came before it, and they're doing something new. And then they find a way to mess it up. And you've got Barry's girlfriend telling him, you're not the Flash, we're the Flash. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You're not the one who runs at super speed. You're not the one who's out there, saving people and fighting bad guys. Why are you saying you're not the Flash, Barry? We're the Flash. It hurts. I hate that it's damaging. Things like this are damaging those characters. And I hope that it's just been so bad that it'll kind of be erased and fixed. I don't know if it'll ever be the same, if it'll change. It's like seeing Bane on screen. How many people saw Bane on screen, on the silver screen, before they ever saw him in a comic book?
Probably.
So go back and go ahead.
Probably millions. I was just answering your question.
Yeah. But to go back and read about him in those comics, like I did for the first time, will they get that same impression? Will they get that same feeling? Wow, this isn't the Bane that was in this movie. No, this is a totally different. It's almost like a totally different character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This was your character. It's. I don't know if we'll ever get that back. And I think that because of that, more and more independent comic book creators, I love it when I get the chance to back projects, because to me that is backing what comic books should be, not this corporate crap.
Mm-hmm. It's a shame, most of us, when we got into this business, you didn't have much of a choice. You had, if you wanted to be considered a pro, you had to work for the A-listers, which was Marvel and DC. Warren Comics in the 70s was still a viable option as well. Some great talent worked there. But it was primarily Marvel and DC in the US, if you wanted to be considered a pro. And, we were all drawn there because of our love for these characters that we grew up with. And then years and years go by, and more people come in and start changing things to the way that, like we talked about, that you don't recognize these characters anymore. But now there's other options, technology, print on demand, the internet, social media, crowdfunding. All of those things have all come into our lives, which now, as I said before, allow you to bypass the gatekeeper as to judge you as to whether you have the talent or not. If you have a great idea, you can get it out there.
And MB Geek Let's Talk says, I love the 90s comics. It had issues, but some of the comics had great stories. I can't think of any of the comics I read in the 90s that didn't have really great stories. I know Clobbering Times would disagree with me, but I love like Death of Superman, the Nightfall series. Though that's what kept me in DC Comics. That's what kept me reading DC Comics was those stories. When Marvel was kicking ass with the Punisher and with Wolverine, DC was pulling me in with story, with really, really great story, characters that I loved. Who would have ever thought Superman would die? Get killed? Yeah, it happened before. They made fun of some of the stuff like, oh, Superman died and I'm a robot. I remember getting my dad this 15-cent comic where he's like lifting up his chest and it's mechanical. Superman is dead. I am his robot, replacement. Just little things like that. But no one ever really killed Superman. No one took him out. So to see Bane take him out, or not Bane, but Doomsday take him out, and then to see Bane take out Batman, you're just like, holy shit, these are the characters that don't get taken down. They don't get beaten. You got Wolverine running around in Marvel, spinning around, killing people, but no one takes out Wolverine. No one just kills Wolverine and leaves him laying dead. No one does that to Superman, but it happened. No one does that to Batman, but it happened. Bane, like, I will not kill you. That's the only voice I can do for Bane because I can't do a Danny Trejo respectably. But him just leaving him laying there like, I've broken you. There's nothing else I have to do. You can live like this for the rest of your life, broken, knowing that I beat you. That was like, holy shit. He just did that to Batman. He just did that to Batman. No one does that to Batman. and there's been nothing like it since. It's history. There's been nothing like it since. No one's ever gone up against Superman and done what Doomsday did. No one ever has gone up against Batman and done what Bane did. They can try and replicate that, but it's just not. It just doesn't happen.
Well, those are those iconic moments where you really can't do it again because the gate's already been opened. Anytime you try to break Batman now, or you try to kill Superman, it just looks like you're repeating yourself. That road has been, mined already.
And I've got a £5 super chat from Purple Valkyrie. Says, really looking forward to Graham's next book, Alien Alamo. Did the idea come from and represent your love of the Western genre? Thank you.
Yes, it did. I love Westerns. I love the Rifleman. And I always thought that dynamic of the Rifleman and his son was a really, really great and loving relationship. I thought that would be kind of a cool thing to do and then put it in a science fiction genre. So the Rifleman was pretty much the starting point for the series, or the series. It's a single book. And it just developed from there.
I love those. I love the Rifleman. I love the idea of people like Annie Oakley too. All the Western, Buffalo Bill, Wild Bill Hickok, all those characters, and real life characters. Everything Western I absolutely love. Tombstone, I love Tombstone with Kurt Russell. I love
that one. I have a Saturday morning Western Roundup show on YouTube, and last Saturday I did Tombstone.
Oh, you guys watched it?
No, we don't. No, I talk about the movies. The show is me discussing a different Western film every Saturday morning and giving you background on it and that kind of stuff. And Saturday was Tombstone, Kurt Russell.
We do a once a month movie watch party where we all get together, and we don't show it obviously on YouTube because of copyright concerns, but we'll watch it, and we'll talk about it while we're watching it, kind of like a play over. You can play it over while you're watching the movie. I'm so afraid to do Tombstone though, because the whole panel will just be like, I'm your Huckleberry, and he's down by the creek walking on water, and have you seen Wyatt? And it'll just be one long, yeah, and hell's coming with me. Your
Great movie.
Spanish was worse than your English. Yeah, you ignorant wretch. Oh, I can just it'll just be it'll be one long quote.
I got an idea. Let's have a spelling contest.
Yes, yes. It's like I'm playing cards with my brother's kids or something. All day. We can do this back and forth all day.
Exactly.
Oh, MB Geek Let's Talk says, sir, what is your favorite indie comic? Mine is Sandman.
Sandman's an indie comic?
I thought it was mainstream, but it might.
Yeah, I mean, DC published it, or
Maybe
Vertigo published it. Yeah, I wouldn't call that indie. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. You know, I've backed so many, and I'm still waiting on so many. So right now, I'm going to go with the easy answer and say the Chenu is my favorite because I know that one's getting sent.
There was a oh man, I can't remember the name of it right now. I'm still waiting on it. I subbed to it. I got it like I think 4 or 5 months ago. The concept was like the Roman Colosseum, but with all the gods, with all like the pantheon of gods, like the Roman gods, the Greek gods, the Norse gods, all of the pantheons of gods fighting it out to the death in like a Mortal Kombat tournament.
Cool. That sounds neat.
I thought that was one of the more original ideas I saw. I'm going to check out Chenu as soon as we're out of here. I know Purple's got the link for me. I have not had a chance to look at that yet, but definitely. And Alien Alamo sounds absolutely like it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. In fact, this morning I've been working on the campaign assets and getting that ready for Indiegogo so that I can launch soon. Sign up page is just about done. That'll get started spreading across social media and stuff, so you can sign up and get a early bird discount when it goes live. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I'm having more fun now. I've been in this business 37 years. And I'm having more fun now than any time, with maybe the exception of when Chuck and I were working on Detective together. But it's right up there with it because I'm captain of my own destiny. I'm more creative because I'm doing the things that I want to do, not working for a job for a paycheck. So I'm passionate about the things that I'm trying to bring to my backers, and it's just I couldn't be happier than any other time in my career.
No, I can totally see that. I've done a lot of things in the past 30 years. I've done a lot of things. I've worked for a lot of different people. I've worked since I was like 10. I worked at my brother's restaurant when I was a kid. I worked for my mother. First job was at like an oil change place. I've worked for newspapers. I've worked for the prison system. I've worked, trucking. I've done all these different jobs. I went to college. I got a degree in psychology, but the most fun I've had has been over the last year doing this, getting up and doing the morning show, 8 a.m. to 9 every morning, getting to talk to people like you, getting to talk to people like Robert Meyer Burnett as from Heel versus Babyface, getting to talk to my chat every morning, and getting to talk about the things I love. It's rewarding unto itself.
Yeah.
It's a job like no other when you are doing something you love and you're getting to have fun every day.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it.
So I want to thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us and talking Batman. So much Batman and Bane. And it has been an absolute pleasure to get to touch base with you. And I cannot wait to get the opportunity to do this again. Definitely when you are getting ready to go with your Alien Alamo, come back on. I would love to talk more about it, and
Sure.
spend a whole hour just covering that would be great.
Cool.
I'm going to check out Chenu. Like I said, as soon as, and we've got Chris Persia and Purple Valkyrie throwing up the links.
Right.
Purple Valkyrie, yeah, we just had our 1 year anniversary. We've been doing this just a year now.
Nice.
It's been crazy. It's been an absolute trip. Thank you. It is such an honor.
My pleasure. Let me just give a quick plug for my Wednesday night show. Wednesday nights at 8:00, I do a show called The Storytellers, where this is the banner behind me right here, where I either talk about or I interview legendary artists and writers about their approach to storytelling. And this Wednesday, it's an earlier time. It's 3:00, or I think it's 3:00. Maybe it's 1:00. I can't remember now. I got to check it. But I'll be discussing storytelling with Michael Golden. And there's not too many more influential artists of his generation. So that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. We've got a link to your channel. I know we've got a link to your channel in chat.
Just if you search Graham Nolan on YouTube, that's just the name of the channel is Graham Nolan. Yeah,
we've got it. To catch Graham Saturday morning Western Roundup, please subscribe right there, guys. Check out his channel. I know I'll be there Wednesday. It is awesome. Wednesday, and Storyteller Show. Cannot wait. That'll be tomorrow. Yep. And thank you again. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
My pleasure.
You created one of the greatest Batman villains for my generation. Yeah, we had Joker. Yeah, we had Two-Face, but they never got one up on him like Bane did. And it's absolutely amazing to get to meet you.
Well, thank you. It's nice to meet you. And Purple Valkyrie was very sweet in bringing me on here. So thank you to her. And yeah, you guys rock. Thanks for all the comments in here too.
Thank you, sir. And guys, we will be back. We will be back at 7 p.m. tonight for 7 Kinds of Mischief, where we are going to talk nothing but Batman with the panel. We've got 24/7 Fusion, Clobbering Time, Mexican Iron Man, Heirs of Chaos, and Bat Steven Seagal coming to join us tonight. So check us out then. Again, Graham, thank you. Thank you so very much for coming here today. And we will catch you guys next time.
So long, gang.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.